What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the review and discussion for UnOrdinary episode 256. Now, this episode got pretty crazy, I'm not gonna lie. Pretty crazy, a pretty good episode nonetheless. Um, Granted, that being said, this episode this episode's definitely important. Like I said, I was pretty sure that the episodes immediately following episode 255 would also be just as important. And this episode definitely doesn't disappoint. Well, it disappoints a little bit, but also not horribly to its detriment. Now, I'll cover that in a little bit. But anyway, so right off the bat, the episode immediately just continues right at the end of episode 255, where it's just Arlo realizing once again something isn't right, and then we just see John on the bus with Dylan sitting next to him. After that, though, we immediately just get to downtown Rowden at 8:30, so around the time that Sarah had entered the lab at NextGen. So it's just Remy with Arlo and the other Safe House kids, and Remy just lets everyone know that they'll meet up at noon for lunch. And then Arlo just tells Remy that he'll tag along with her. Clearly we know why, because John, like I've been saying and like it's been like brought up, John is in charge of Blyke, Arlo is in charge of Remy for this trip. Anyway, Arlo lets Remy know that he'll tag along with her, and she just tells him that she's going to go dress shopping with Elaine and Oriel. We finally meet Oriel. And I was wrong. I was wrong. Now, as you guys remember, if you guys remember, I have mentioned that I believed that Oriel is the girl sitting next to Elaine in episode 1, way back when, the girl with red hair. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Oriel is she's a girl with purplish hair, a little similar in color to Layla, and she also has like some cute little bob cut bangs, or that's probably not even the right wording. Anyway, point is, that's Oriel, and unfortunately, she's not who I thought she was, but she is still cute. She's still cute. I still stand by the fact that she could be number 9. She should be number 9. She's a friend of Serafina, and Serafina, she rolled with high rankers before. Anyway, so, when Remy's like, hey, do you still want to tag along? We're going dress shopping. But Arlo is just, after a moment, just kind of like, he's just like, yeah, I'll come along. But as they start walking, Remy notices Arlo's demeanor. She notices that something's up with him. And she just contemplates to herself, and she asks herself if he's okay. So clearly Remy is starting to catch on, like I mentioned, like I was hoping she would be. So I'm pretty sure she's going to ask Arlo. Now, pretty sure she's going to ask Arlo, and whether or not he's going to tell her what's the dealio remains to be seen. So then, we cut to the NextGen facility with Sarah at 8:42 a.m. and she's tied up Dr. Kelly. She takes his ID card from his coat, and then she begins to dig into convergent technology, basically saying, Spectre's not going to tell me anything, so I got to do some digging myself. So, in the convergent technology file, she doesn't look at any of the other files. So she doesn't look at the amplification technology or the research or the ability research. She just looks into conversion technology only. So she does some digging, and she first clicks into the research folder, which basically tells us what we can all have been assuming, I think. They're trying to convert and transform people's auras into any desired ability, also to control ability variables and create more reliable task force. Now, this is some big stuff right here. It also notes that the progress of the research and everything has been slow, but major breakthroughs have been made overall. They do also note that they are able to convert a portion of the subject's aura into a different abilities, but the conversion is 100% efficient, and there is notable aura loss during the conversion process. Now, whether or not that's loss of the original ability, of the original person's aura, or if it's the aura of the ability that they're trying to mimic that's lost, that remains to be seen. I think it does have to do with possibly the former, the person's aura being lost, because they do also mention in the notes, only high tier individuals with high channel output are successful. And that's why I think, okay, so there's notable aura loss. So real talk, if there's notable aura loss, I think that Valerie may actually be stronger than Arlo, or, somewhere, or at least just a few clicks weaker than him. I say that because if there's notable aura loss, and I'm going to assume that it's the user's aura, it's themselves, Vulcan was still fucking handling the shit out of Remy. So, yeah. Anyway. Big stuff. Major stuff with the next update. So, we got a list of successfully conversioned abilities that have been successful so far with this research. And I say these are big because I didn't even put 2 and 2 together back then, but now that I've done some digging again, I'm like, yo, what? So successful abilities: regeneration, speed, and flame claw. So we have basically confirmation that the ability that Vulcan had was flame claw. So I don't yeah. Anyway, so then there was notes for sources obtained but not yet worked, noted as high level abilities. One was Phantom Walk, and the other one was Lightning. And we know how they got their hands on Lightning. Why is this important? Why is that important? Because we know part of the reason why Ember is going after all these heroes. It's for their abilities. Like Ray, they got a hold of Lightning. They got a hold of a regeneration ability. They got a hold of a speed ability. And this is where I want to talk briefly all the way back in the X-Ray arc. Let's talk let me pull it up. Let's talk about episodes 116 and 117. Remy versus Vulcan. Now, actually, I'll touch on that in a second. So, with the abilities, we have a list of heroes that have been confirmed killed in the story. And I think we can guess as to what those abilities and belong to which heroes. So clearly, Lightning belonged to Ecstatic. It belonged to Ray. Regeneration, I am inclined to believe, at first I thought that this hero's ability might have been Flame Claw, but then I also thought about what more abilities what more things that this name could be capable of. And so I think that the regeneration ability belonged to the superhero Phoenix. Now, like I said, I thought that, Phoenix probably Flame Claws because, Phoenixes are kind of associated with fire and they're freaking giant birds, so they have talons too. But then I remembered, no, Phoenixes, they regenerate. They come back to life after death. And so that's where I'm thinking the regeneration came from Phoenix. Speed, which was also noticed as an ability that they were able to convert. I believe this belongs to the superhero known as Hurricane. Now, this is kind of just a wild shot on my guess, but some people on the UnOrdinary wiki have guessed that Hurricane's ability could be associated with speed, possibly wind. Now, here's the crazy thing. The next, well, again, I'll get back to the crazy thing. Now, Phantom Walk. I believe that this ability belongs to the superhero who was killed, called Spectre. Now, whether or not this hero has ties to Spectre, they probably do. That's probably how they got their name. I think that it belongs to this ability belongs to them because, like, let's be real, Phantom Walk, Spectre, I think they just go hand in hand. Same with like all these abilities aside from Hurricane, so, ecstatic, lightning, static. Now, Flame Claw. I'm still gonna stand by my statement that I think Flame Claw belongs to Cassandra because I was going through the list of heroes, and after I made the connection with Phoenix and Regeneration, I couldn't really think of which hero Flame Claw could belong to. And also the fact that Flame Claws, like the burns and the slashes on the dead bodies of the heroes, that's kind of been an ongoing theme with Ember for a long time. Now, I don't believe that all heroes that were murdered, especially in the beginning, had these things. I believe that came afterwards. But I do think Flame Claw, just based on that information alone, of that kind of being a recurring thing with Ember, I think that Flame Claw is an in-house ability with Ember. And so I am still standing by. I think that Cassandra's ability is Flame Claw. I think Flame Claw comes from her. So yeah, there's that. Now, real quick, let's talk about those abilities, though. Let's talk about the abilities that Vulcan had. Yes, abilities. Now, clearly, Arlo said that Aunt Valerie has a barrier just like him. And that clearly threw Remy off because she was like, wait, what? What? Because Vulcan didn't use no barriers. Vulcan used some flame claws. But that's not the only ability that she actually used. So yeah. So going back to her fight in episodes 116 and 117. Vulcan had 3 extra abilities with her. She had Flame Claws, clearly, but she also had the speed of Hurricane and the regeneration of Phoenix. I did some digging into those chapters, and I realized, it finally clicked for me, that when Remy was fighting Vulcan, Remy was curious as to how she was moving so fast. Now, of course, back then when I first read the chapter, when we first read that, guys, I just chalked that up to, oh, yo, this is just anime bullshit. Like, like the person, like the hero is always just like, dude, how are they moving so fast? Like, they're so much stronger than me. Like, it's crazy. But like, it makes sense now why she was able to move so fast, because she had a speed ability. So clearly she was able to move faster and react faster to the attacks Remy was doing. There were a lot of moments in the battle where Remy almost got an attack off on Vulcan, but she managed to immediately dodge out of the way right at the last second. Regeneration. There was a moment when Remy kind of got hit off on Vulcan, but she kind of shrugged it off. And we know that Remy's lightning isn't a joke. We do know that. Like, John was able to get up after struggling a little bit, just a tiny bit, but like Remy's lightning still did some damage to John. Now, with that being said, Vulcan's whole thing, especially I noticed this, after Blake decided to act to go to back up Remy in the fight, he got her like right here, like right in like this like area. Is this the shoulder blade? We'll call it the shoulder blade. Gets her right in the shoulder blade. And clearly Vulcan was knocked back by that. But I noticed after she was knocked back, she held her right hand over the wound. And she also had aura activated on it, similarly to Tanner, another holder of the regeneration ability who's a student at Wellston. Way back when he fought John in episode 46. 46? Not 46. 43. In episode 43, he held his hand, assumably using his regeneration ability, on his arm after John broke it. So, yeah, Vulcan didn't have one ability. It wasn't just Flame Claws. It was 3 abilities. It was Flame Claws and Speed. That's fucking insane. The plot just keeps thickening, guys, and I love it. Now, there were some more ability notes. It did also note abilities like Future Sight and Telepathy, Blue Hair's ability, were failed conversions. They had a theory that abilities not sourced from the physical plane cannot be converted, and there has been success with partial physical sourcing abilities. However, abilities fully reliant on non-physical sources require further testing. Now, this is kind of similar to what the fandom is speculating with John, despite my own gripes with that theory and how I feel that doesn't necessarily make sense for John. But nonetheless, it seems that they're also running into issues like that. They can't convert things like Future Sight and Telepathy. So, Blue Hair, well, I guess it's not really physical. There is like that feedback, I guess. That's another thing. Like, what constitutes as physical feedback then? Anyway, so after she's looking into the notes and everything on research, Sarah then questions why Spectre wants it since it hasn't even been perfected. She speculates that it's possibly to pair with the high tier, to pair with the high tiers that they've collected, and that they may be able to test it themselves, to be able to finish it themselves. And this would actually make sense given how they took her ability away and they're trying to recruit high tiers. So maybe they want to, make their own task force, like Sarah said, like greed's kind of getting in the way. So maybe the people, and also, if I recall correctly, Sarah is on this mission for the person who took away her ability. So maybe this guy wants it because he wants to make his own task forces. Maybe he's in leagues with Ember, actually. Maybe he's like, yeah, I'm a part of Spectre, but I'm actually playing both sides so I can make it out on top no matter what. So anyway, Sarah then does us all a huge favor. And by that, I mean Uru knows what we want and she doesn't hold out on us, except a little bit. Sarah looks over Jane's folder and boom! Information on Jane. Thank you, Zuru. Now, it's not much. It's honestly not much. It's a single page with like 10 words on it at most. But it's still a lot. It's still a hell of a lot. Now, no last name. It's just her name, Patient Jane. But we do get her ability. And Jane, I'm just going to say it. Jane Doe's ability, Channel Master. I don't know what the fuck that is, but nonetheless, she is a level 9.1. Not a level 10, so Uru's still not giving us that level 10 ability. I honestly thought, John's mom being a high tier, or John's mom, for John to be a level 7.5, and his mom to have, had a child with a cripple, I was dead on, John, he gotta be, his mama gotta be a level 10. But, let's just talk about the fact that our boy, William Doe, was able to, it's similar to John and Sarah. It's similar to John and Sarah because as a cripple, John was able to befriend a level 8. You know, get in her good graces. As a cripple, William was able to hook a level 9.1, boys. Our man, absolute Chad. William Doe, Chad of the year. Anyway, now, this is the highest confirmed level we have gotten yet. And Sarah even remarks that she herself has never seen someone this powerful. And she also notes that the location is restricted even for someone like Dr. Kelly, who had access to this information. So, like I said last time, her location is restricted, so I think that does lead credence to the fact, like I said last time, Jane is not at this facility. She's not. She's at a facility with connections to Next Gen. Now, she then finishes extracting the data, and she begins to head back to meet with Stacy. Now, when she gets to the door, she doesn't immediately leave. She begins talking with the team, and they all discuss that they're gonna need Tech, the girl who's like overriding the cameras and everything. She's gonna need to override the camera footage briefly, and she does. And Sarah successfully meets up with Stacy again, and they head to the next area. Now, back with Blake and John's group, with everyone just at the hike, and Blake comments that everyone will be fine. And, you know, people, when they see, like, what the hike is actually going to be like, some students are kind of like, oh, this looks pretty intense. And even Terence was like, is it too late to change my mind? And Blake, like I said, Blake's like, guys, like, it's going to be fine. Like, come on. And, like, you know, people like, kind of poke at it, like, says the most athletic kid in school. And so they all begin to head out. But John, meanwhile, glares at Terence, who's actually seemingly afraid of John in that moment. There's no snide remark. There's no, like, smug grin to him or anything. He just sweats and runs to join with Evie and everyone. But John does hint that Terence is no joke, stating that he managed to stay hidden for 2 years. I mean, to be fair, John can't really talk. It's kind of the same thing. But he does mention, like, that he's going to need to keep an eye on Terence. And I think that says a lot about John. Or I think that kind of speaks to Terence a little bit. Now, I'm not going to talk about Terence, but basically, I want to say this. Terence is honestly very confusing. And, you know, maybe that's on purpose for Uruk to try and throw us, you know, aside. But, like, with the whole Sarah thing, like, over the course of this trip, he's had that, like, smugness to him. He's been following Sarah around. He's clearly got connections. He has people able to keep an eye on her and everything. So clearly Terence knows that he has some control over Sarah. Now, that's probably most likely because he outranks her in Spectre, most likely. Like, let's be real. But when it comes to John, I feel like if Terence really did have that level of backup, he wouldn't necessarily fear John the way he does, or at least shows to. And let's also not forget that Terence was John fanboy number 1. Like, Terence was the kid who was like, we need to make John king. But who knows? Like I said, Terence is kind of confusing me lately. I'm honestly not sure what to think of him. But we also can't forget that he also is the reason why everyone is separated today. So, regardless, we then meet back up with Sarah at 9:17 a.m. in basement level 2. Now, Sarah is going to need to grab a sample, which is why she grabbed, in order to get to the room, that's why she grabbed Dr. Kelly's ID, so she can scan it. And they do point out that the scanner is going to need time to process, so Sarah's going to have to stop using her ability briefly for the doors to unlock, while once again Tech is going to override the cameras, and Sarah makes it into the lab. So this scene was actually really funny, because, like, I'm just picturing how this scene would be animated. And so, like, the way it plays out is that Sarah's just like, hey, like, I'm going to be back before the doors unlock. So yeah, so she's like, I'm gonna be back before the door's unlocked. Don't worry. And I'm like, yo, Sarah, you got it, girl. Don't even worry. But Sarah rushes out of the door. Like, we see her sprint and everything. We see her book it. And the next shot is just her, like, just no ability activate or anything. She just, like, literally just beep. And then she's in the lab. Like, I'm just imagining it's, like, one of those, like, animated scenes where, like, the character's doing something, like, really intense, really high energy. And then the next shot is just them, like, just completely nonchalant, just doing something, like, drinking a soda or something. And then they just continue on. That just made me laugh. Anyway. So, the tech overrides the cameras again. Sarah makes it in the lab. And she reactivates her ability as soon as she enters. And she's walking. She's not running. She's walking. And she finds the samples, but her vision blurs again. Just like in her fight with John when she strained herself. In her fight with John where she overworked herself. So she strains and falls to her knees and the doors shut. And then Agent Rowden even notes that Sarah is starting to show up on the cameras, questioning why she's slowing down. And the chapter ends with Sarah asking herself, when did my ability stop working, as the alarms are going off? Now, when I read this chapter, I had two schools of thought. I was of the belief that it had to be something in the lab. Something had to have happened to Sarah in the lab for this to happen to her. But then I did a little more digging. I went back to episodes 223 and 224, the fight with her and John. And I went back to those episodes and I did a little more research. Now, here are points as to why Sarah's ability is acting up. The biggest one being that in her fight with John, at first she was able to slow down both John and his attacks in order to dodge and destroy them. Even after her first blur, she was able to do that briefly. However, a bit after that in their fight, she stopped slowing things down and just broke them as is, while herself was still sped up. Another thing is also her outline. You know, as we've seen before, Sarah kind of has a magenta-ish outline whenever she is speeding herself up. And that outline disappeared as well. And her ability was still active, but none of the effects were being present. By effects, I mean that her gears, when she was straining, her gears that show up when she's using her ability, again, they started to disappear as well. So, those are reasons as to why I think Sarah's ability is acting up. Like I said, the aura of her like slowing everything down started to disappear, just like it did in the fight with John. Her outline for her speeding up was gone as well, and also the effect of her ability, the gears, started to fade away as well in the chapter. But here are some reasons as to why it could be something in the lab. And these aren't necessarily like things that we've seen. This is just my speculation and me saying, like, you know, some of these things kind of don't add up. Main thing being, Sarah has not exerted herself as much as she did when she fought John. In terms of episode time, she has used her ability for a few seconds, possibly minutes for her. But the time that Sarah has been using her ability compared to her fight with John, like I said, it's like literally seconds. Her fight with John was probably a few minutes at least. So yeah, like I said, she's only been using her ability like when she used it to meet up with Dr. Kelly. Stacy said she had 3 seconds to get in the lab. She did it in 3 seconds. You know, clearly this trip here took her a few seconds too. And, you know, and she also had to deactivate her ability. And then also she was literally just walking around in the lab. So Sarah did not strain herself at all when using her ability. I did look back again. Okay, I'll get to that. I'll get to that again in a bit. So there was that. And again, in her fight with John, as an example, she's not slowing down her. She's only slowing down her surroundings and speeding herself up. She's not attacking. She's not regenerating or anything like when she fought John. She's literally just using her ability for transportation. And I think definitely, Sarah was definitely overworking herself before because John was her hardest fight. Yet Sarah even comments that she couldn't remember the last time she had sustained that much damage. So she was using many more aspects of her ability from there. So yeah. So like I said, Sarah wasn't really pushing herself like she was in the fight either. Now, here's another one. Her Spectre team should be aware of her limitations, and they should know what would be too much for her. Unless she's been set up to fail like I speculate. But at this point, it honestly doesn't seem like she has been. But like I said, Spectre's aware of Sarah's current condition. And this guy has also been in talks, and Rowden has also been in talks with Terence this whole time as well. So, and I say that Spectre should know her stat, she's kind of screwed without them, because she even brings it up to the higher-ups in their meetings. Layla knows, Terence knows, so I am fairly positive that Agent Rowden and her team should know that Sarah's ability is not permanently back. They shouldn't be aware of her limitations and everything. That's just speculation on my part. That just seems like what would make sense to me. Obviously, Uru could just say, no, they actually don't know everything about her. Anyway, yeah. And lastly, my last point, there was no physical strain on Sarah up to this point. Now, like I was saying, there was no physical strain at any point when she's been using her ability these last few chapters. There's no sweat. There's no nothing, really. So, like I said, there was nothing really to hint that this was going to happen to Sarah. So I'm still fairly positive that it is something within the lab that's been affecting Sarah. As to what, I don't know. We're gonna have to wait to see tomorrow. So yeah. And one last little bit that I guess I could point to as to why her ability might be acting up. If we recall, Blue Hair mentioned that Sarah is gonna need to focus on a task at hand to keep their connection stable and everything. Maybe, she's thinking about all the stuff that she read. Maybe, she's putting a little bit of strain on Blue Hair. Maybe that's feeding back to her as well. Not really too concrete there, but, just a thought. So, yeah, those are the thoughts on the chapter. But one last bit I want to talk about. Because we got the stuff about Ember in this chapter, the abilities that they had and everything. And that got me thinking about something that happened a few years ago, or maybe a year ago. No, a few years ago, I think. Anyway, point is, let's talk about the Ember takeover. Remember that shit? Now, going back to Sarah looking over the folders and noting that lightning was one of the abilities that they had in possession, but but hadn't really cracked yet. Now, as unreliable as the Ember takeover was in terms of information, because there was a lot of holes specifically with Sarah and John's folders, the other two folders that were there were really interesting to look at. And those were Remy's and Arlo's folder. Now, on her folder, Remy was noted as being Ray's sister and had possible ties to the hero X-Ray. But her file also said to terminate her. Not keep an eye on her, it was terminate her. And I'm thinking they probably want her out of the picture, not because she's an annoyance, because they want to get their hands on her ability. They want to try and look further into what they want to get another test sample. They want another source for the lightning ability. And so I am honestly kind of scared for Remy at this point, because we don't know. Is Cassandra willing to kill Remy? Is that what Cassandra's going for? Who knows? But I think that's really interesting to think about. We know that Ember has their hands on Ray's ability. They may want to kill her, so they have her too for more testing. For they have two sources for the same ability. And the other one that was really interesting was Arlo's. Arlo wasn't listed under Watch. He wasn't listed under Terminate. Arlo was listed as Acquire Powers. Now, I highly doubt that Valerie is going to let him become abilityless. Highly doubt that shit. But like I said, I'm sticking with the belief that Flame Claws is an in-house Ember ability. So I think it's possible that they may want his variant because, maybe he is the strongest in the family. They need high tier abilities and everything. So they need high tiers and everything. So maybe they want it. He's the strongest in the family, and they could probably, they probably want to get their hands on it like they have it with Flameclaw. Now, granted, they do already have barrier ability with, clearly Valerie being a part of all this. But, maybe they want it because, he has a stronger version of it. So that's all I really got for Arlo, but this could also explain further as to why Valerie was pitching him to let go of everyone at Wellspring. She's just like, Arlo, forget about all that noise. I can get you set up with the authorities. Don't even worry about it. Don't even worry about it, kid. So yeah, I think Remy and Arlo are both targets for Ember for completely different reasons. For the same reasons, but completely different situations. So yeah, those are the thoughts for episode 256. Now we are going to have to wait big time to see what happens tomorrow because oh man, I'm scared. I'm scared with what's going to happen. Because Sarah's in shit. And like I said, everyone's been separated. Terence is up to something. Spectre's up to something. But we're just going to have to wait and see. We are at the mercy of Uru. So, that's going to be it for today, guys. Honestly, like I said, Uru's been killing it. I got to give this chapter a 10 out of 10. I can't even lie. I got to give this chapter a 10 out of 10. Like I said originally, I was a little disappointed with the Arlo and John stuff on their end, but overall, no, I don't think that really takes away from the chapter itself. So 10 out of 10 chapter, my boys. And yeah, that's going to be it. And I can't wait to see you guys back later on tomorrow night for the review of the reaction to episode 57. So until then, you guys, as always, see you, Space Cowboy.